Solidarity and shalom, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about a very unique case when it comes to our movement being the communist socialist movement, and it is the case of Nepal, which has a very unique conditions and very unique results because of the conditions of their revolution. Now, for those who don't know, Nepal is a tiny country to the north, mountainous country to the north of India, south of China. And it, for many, many decades, or hell, for many, many centuries, was a monarchy. Um, and this sort of colors the story of the Nepalese revolution, um, the struggle against the struggle of the common people against that monarchy. Now, if y'all want a much more detailed history of Nepal leading up to the revolution and all of that, and going into the revolution, like a super detailed history, and not just like talking about the case and sort of voicing my opinions on it, then you can check out this video that I have pinned inside the live chat and that I'll put inside the comments, and it will give you a really detailed history. But what I'm going to be doing is talking about sort of the unique conditions and their result and the result of the unique conditions of the Nepalese revolution. So Nepal is a country that, for the first half of the 20th century, it was an absolute monarchy, and the struggle for any sort of democratic reforms and land reforms and any sort of uh, democracy and representation had been led by the national bourgeoisie under um, several different labels, but now you could call their modern label the Nepalese Congress Party. And they're very similar to India's National Congress Party, which is a national bourgeoisie, social democratic, um, and pro-imperialist wing of the pro-democracy forces that were fighting against the monarchy. And they had won gains throughout the years, and eventually they had won themselves a constitutional monarchy. And this constitutional monarchy had massive problems. And there were several modern, along with the Nepalese Congress, there was also the Communist Party of Nepal, Unified Marxist Leninist, which is one of the major political parties in Nepal today. And in the 90s, the communist movement had a massive disagreement over whether or not they should legally operate within this constitutional monarchy, or there should be an armed struggle. And so in the mid 90s, the Maoist faction of the communist movement in Nepal started a protracted people's war against the constitutional monarchy. And I believe from the years 1996 until the year 2008, they were fighting a protracted people's war, and they won. Now, I know a lot of y'all will hear me say in the past that Maoists have never succeeded in revolution. I guess that's a bit of that's incorrect to a certain degree. Now, then the Maoists never did march into the cities and take the power in the cities like Mao did when he wrote about protracted war. But they did win over the country's peasantry and the countryside, and they had massive control over the countryside all throughout the 90s and into the mid 2000s. And I think this is just my speculation, but I think because the Maoists were not able to take the cities, they also were not able to institute what they had been calling for this entire time, which would have been a people's dictatorship under new democracy. Instead, what came as a result of the Nepalese revolution, which makes it very unique, is the overthrow of the monarchy, but not the establishment of a socialist republic, but an establishment of a federal democratic republic and multi-party democracy. So those other two parties I was talking about, the Unified Marxist-Leninist and the Nepalese National Congress, are two of the three, along with the Maoists, major political forces, parties in Nepal. And because of this power sharing deal, there has been massive issues in Nepal. And so we look at the Nepalese revolution and we say, wow, this is quite amazing that in the 21st century, the protracted People's War worked and the guerrilla warfare tactic worked in Nepal to a degree. They were able to overthrow the monarchy, but it was a constitutional monarchy. So now they're operating within a system that still allows for the national bourgeoisie to exist. And they never did overthrow that national bourgeoisie. And now the Maoists, who had so ardently been against operating within the system that they claimed was a comprador system, now they're operating within it as well. Only it's no longer a constitutional monarchy, it's a federal democratic republic, multi-party democracy. And this to this day has continued to cause problems. Once the Maoists ended the Civil War and signed the power sharing agreement with the and decided to create a new constitution for a federal democratic republic, a smaller Maoist faction who wants to continue the People's War until total revolution emerged. And I believe to this day they're still out there in very small numbers trying to do that. But I think that something that is even more unique to look at in this case is that the two communist parties in 2018 that we're talking about here, the two of the three major political forces in the country, decided to join forces and to consolidate the communist movement in 2018. And the consolidation of the communist movement seems to be, what needs to be done for there to be for there to be socialism inside of Nepal. But the problem is that these two factions of the Maoists and the Unified Marxist-Leninists, they disagree too much. Not only, and in 2020, the party split again. And so ever since this the success of the Maoists in 2008 and the overthrow of the constitutional monarchy, there's been instability in Nepal. Not to mention in 2015, a massive earthquake that is unlike any that has happened in decades and decades, if not in centuries, that has devastated the country. And COVID has hit this tiny Nepal extremely hard. And it has caused, and the lack of consolidation within the communist movement within the country has truly caused a level of instability and turmoil. And what I fear is that this turmoil and lack of consolidation amongst communist forces inside Nepal will only allow for the weakening of the communist movement and the strengthening of the national bourgeoisie, who are closely tied to India. Now, if I'm normally one that's very much against, the Maoist position of perpetual war and left adventurism, but the Maoists in Nepal didn't put their people into perpetual war. They put them into a protracted war, but it was not perpetual. It ended. And I appreciate that about them. I appreciate that they recognize that if they would have continued and continued and continued, they would have only put themselves in perpetual war and probably would have never succeeded in overthrowing the constitutional monarchy. But at the same time, we see that what the capitulation to this national democratic system, alongside the national bourgeoisie, has caused political instability within the country. And while the communists have changed Nepal forever for the better, it hasn't been an easy road, and they have not been able to construct anything close to resembling socialism. And that's something that's very disappointing, especially given the fact that they took state power by, the barrel of a gun. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this and bring up the fact that a protracted people's war actually succeeded to a degree in the 21st century, but it also ended up having its failures and shortcomings. And we can see what those failures and shortcomings are, and through the political instability that still plagues Nepal to this day. Now, as I said before, there is a comrade from Canada that goes into a great detailed history about this movement, and I pinned it in the live chat, and I will put it in the comments below. And that's a very informative historical thing. My piece was more of a bit of an opinion piece here, but that's sort of what we do. So yeah, I appreciate everyone who tuned in and watched. I hope that you all go and check out that video. It's pretty long, detailing the history of the communist movement in Nepal. It's pretty good, and I hope everyone tunes in soon, because sooner rather than later, I don't know if it's going to be next week or the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing the video of the scientific outlook on development. So a part of the Chinese system series. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And thank you everyone who tuned in and watched. Solidarity and shalom, and have a good one.